That's a big motherfucker of a question. How will you know when you are fulfilled? I am on the path to get more rich. Empowered communication is a form of self-care. Today we are going to talk about the topic of fear. And I'll begin with the story that inspired this topic. You may or may not know that there are a lot of Facebook groups out there in the world. Millions, I'm sure. I run one, which I just linked to here. Each and every one of you should be a part of that, but if you're not, go ahead and join. And in my interest in building up this Facebook group to be one of the best ever in its category, especially for mindset and for entrepreneurs, I started joining 100. That was my goal number, to join another 100 free Facebook groups on the topic of entrepreneurship. The title of my forthcoming blog post is, I joined 100 Facebook entrepreneur groups so you don't have to. But spoiler alert, you really don't have to. Mine and Alyssa's are really the only ones where anything useful is being said. There are a few other more niche specific useful ones, probably like specific to marketing or specific to copywriting or what have you. But the wide net casting Facebook groups for entrepreneurs, Lord, not the best. Not a lot of useful material in there. Potentially just a whole boatload more distractions for you. But what did I see? What was the most common word I saw floating around in those groups? And of course, they're free groups. They're open to the public. So you have a lot of beginners in there. What is the word? It's the topic of our class today. Fear. Why don't you try this? Fear. Why haven't you taken an action? Fear. Fear of failure, they say, though I don't know if I believe that, because everyone is doing a really good job at not taking action towards their goals. It's like, how do you do that so well? How do you keep falling short of your goals? You're so successful at doing that. So do you really fear failure? I don't know. We'll see what it might be instead. But more importantly, you guys are not so much like the folks who are in hundreds of these Facebook groups, absorbing content, maybe scrolling through it, but not doing anything. You guys do stuff. You come to Mindset Mastery class on a Tuesday. So you're cut from a different cloth. So how do we deal with fear? How does the action taker deal with fear? How does the person who faces fear deal with fear? And where is it still sneaky? Where are there still opportunities and insights for us to glean as we look non-judgmentally at our own relationships with fear? Who can recall when they've acted in the face of fear? Can you type a 1 in the chat if a moment pops out at you as I ask, when did you act in the face of fear? When were you afraid of something and did it anyway? Only Lynn. Nobody else? Melissa, yes. Alyssa, also yes. So we're all capable of facing fears. The point of class today is not to turn you into being a fearless person, but more of a fear-facing person. Not fearless, but a fear-facer. If we run fear through the GPS, which is what we do here, GPS being, well, how does this thing that I seem to blame for my lack of action, what does it actually give me? How does it protect me? And how does it serve me? Fear gives us an out at every level, right? I don't have to do anything towards that because I'm wholly afraid of it. Why would I go towards what I fear? The problem is, though, our fear drives, and the amygdala, the part of our brain where fear lives, is adapted to fear in the jungle. The lion. Yeah, it's useful if my amygdala fires and tells me I'm afraid in the jungle. Problem is, we do not live in the jungle anymore. And so that same response often fires and causes us to run away from the exact actions that may propel us forward and get us closer to what we want. That is what it costs us. It gives us that protection. Protection from having our egos hurt. If somebody says no to us, if somebody makes fun of us, if somebody talks shit to us, if we're so afraid that we never put ourselves in the situation where we risk somebody saying no or rejecting or talking shit to us, RCH, rejection, crickets, and hate. If our fear prohibits us from ever doing anything that might meet that response, what is it doing? It's protecting us from that response. Thank you for that, fear. How does it serve us? It keeps us in the familiar. It keeps those folks in the Facebook group joining more Facebook groups, as if that is the solution to getting them what they want, as if that is the productive action to take. I'm afraid to enact what this course tells me to do, but I'm very familiar with buying courses, so I'll buy another one. I'm very familiar with opting in for freebies, so I will opt in for another. That's what fear does to us. And there are two acronyms. I did not make this up. People say this. I don't know who made it up. Fear could stand for forget everything and run. Lion in the jungle, pretty useful. Or forget everything and rise. I will rise. I will face the fear. And I'm going to give more practical action steps you'll be able to use today and forevermore to face more of those fears. But what about the edge cases? Us, the fear facers. The obvious takeaway of looking back at a time you were afraid and faced the fear, what's the obvious lesson there? It didn't kill you. It didn't hurt nearly as badly as your worst case scenario, amygdala, fear brain would have you believe a bad outcome would be, right? We grossly mispredict how bad we think a bad outcome would be. But we face bad outcomes or outcomes we did not anticipate all the time. Are they ever as bad as what we were most terrified of? No. If what you're most terrified of before getting on stage and delivering a presentation is vomiting all over yourself and passing out, one, very low probability that actually occurs. And two, would it be the worst thing? Still no. You would get an awful lot of attention. You'd go viral. You'd have something to talk about in future presentations. So we could cast some awareness on our amygdala brain and say, thank you for doing everything you're doing. I am the grown-up now. I got this. Watch. And the more you teach your amygdala brain, the more she will relax. But the edge cases. Alyssa Dillon would not admit to being afraid of many things, nor would I, right? I do scary shit all the time. I go on stage, crazy ass skin tight, studded bodysuit, I'm not afraid, right? Make offerings all the time. I'm not afraid. But what do I say instead? What will I say instead if somebody was like, Laura, have you done this? Laura, have you tried this? I might say, I'm busy. I'm so busy. I can't try that new thing. I'm swamped. Well, maybe you're busy. Maybe you're not. Maybe it's a little bit scary to you, though. And that's why you fill your time with the familiar things that you're used to doing that keep you so busy. Are you so busy, or is the work you do really so tricky and intricate and impossible to explain that you can't hand it off? Or are you just a little bit afraid to hand it off? A little bit afraid to trust somebody? A little bit unsure in your ability to delegate and lead them through it? So maybe you're so busy, or maybe you're the only one who could do every single part of your business that you could do, or there's a little bit of fear or uncertainty in there. The way I'm doing it right now is better. This is another thing we will say. I know what I'm doing, and the way I'm doing it is better. I got this. I'm in my lane. I'm the master of my domain. And I'm in control. Control. So what might we fear? Edge cases. Anything that appears to be relinquishing some control. Right? We might have just a little tinge of fear or uncertainty with that, of the unknown, because we cannot exactly predict how it's going to go. And at the root of all behavior, at the root of every single thing we do, is our identity. That's why I teach mindset. That's why I encourage and motivate you guys and yell at you to understand that you are worthy, irrepeatable, one of one. You are a non-fungible token. You realize that? NFT equals human. A human is an NFT. Cannot be repeated. Because the more I can get you guys to realize that, the more you will become a fear facer. But if you feel unworthy or not experienced enough, if you feel like you need blank before you go after what you really want, what type of identity do you have? It's not there yet. You don't feel it fully within your identity. That's where you have to feel it. Because if you struggle with imposter syndrome, and I know not everybody would use that language, but if you do, it doesn't seem to matter how many wins you get. It doesn't seem to matter how often you prove that you're not an imposter. Because it's still wrestling and intention in there with your identity. So you need to continuously think about your identity so that you end up effortlessly behaving in ways that are in alignment with your identity. A friend and client of mine, buying a new house. She works her ass off. She deserves this house. It's a $3 million house. Calls me crying. I don't know why, Laura, I'm freaking out about the house. I'm like, do you feel like you deserve the house? And she says no. And she cries. So she's thinking about every possible way the universe will correct the mistake it must have made for her to be able to get this house, for her to find it, be able to afford it, to approve it, all of that. She thinks it will all crash and burn because really deep down, and this is deep shit, and it takes time, and it's hard to realize. And I empathize with the challenges of it. I live them as well. But if somewhere in that identity, she is not the woman who deserves that house, what happens? First of all, she feels like shit when she knows at the logical level that she should feel good. Why don't I feel good? She was saying. So we gradually worked ways for her to realize the identity of the woman who deserved the house. And then she became excited about the house and stopped feeling so terrified about the house. So we move fear out of the amygdala and into the prefrontal cortex. We just look at it, play around with it, acknowledge it. We are not driven by it. This is the distinction. Just like procrastination, you can control it. It doesn't have to control you. To help you get further clarity on that, I ask, how do you know that you're afraid? All those folks who answered the question, why haven't you started? And they say fear. Other people try to give advice. What good will that do with no identity shift, right? So instead I ask, how do you know you're afraid? How do you know? We love this question, right? It's presupposition. I've taught some of you guys this. Because it shifts the perspective onto the behavior, and it shows you that you are in control of it. How do you know that you're afraid? Well, because I haven't done anything, because I keep buying courses, because I think the next course is going to somehow give me the answer and make me unafraid. Okay, so that's a behavior that we can modify in alignment with the identity of somebody who is a fear facer and who is not controlled by fear. So how do you know? When and where do you feel it? Do you feel it in the body? Is your head chattering at you like crazy? Do you dry heave like I used to before Zoom calls? It's part of my process. Laura, what do you do before a Zoom call? I play Billy Joel and dry heave. That was my thing. But frequency of exposure, just like your recollection, what happened when you faced your fear, the thing you faced became way less scary. Right? So you can reckon with all of this. There's incredible power, especially for my edge cases, in noticing that lingering fear is in some way affecting you. Because now it's not, I'm so busy, I gotta fix my time management. Now it's not, I gotta fix my marketing, right? Now it's not, I gotta fix my delegation skills. Not yet, not first, not most foundationally. You gotta fix your fear. You gotta fix whatever that lingering thing is that you're afraid of. And then the new skills, some of which you'll realize you don't even really need, but those new skills will become yours way more effortlessly. Because every leadership book under the sun, every leadership strategy under the sun, every time management strategy under the sun already exists. You could know it for free. So why don't we? Why don't we have all the answers? And it's because of those lingering fears that somehow clog it all up in the nervous system so that we don't digest the material. Who downloads a bunch of shit and then never looks at it again, right? So we don't digest the material, and even in the odd case where we do, we don't take action on it because of the lingering fear. So it is not weakness to catch what your lingering fears are. It's incredibly powerful because now we can get the force multiplier, foundational, exponential change. So that's the how do you know and the where questions surrounding fear. And I'm going to give specific examples in how I'm working through this in real time. But of course, the what. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? Most will say failure. I don't know. A lot of people are pretty good at failing. A lot of people are pretty good at living in what they claim to be afraid of. But here's the flip on feeling afraid of failure. Another one. You have not failed enough. You have not failed enough to meet your goal. You know why I'm not a billionaire? I haven't failed enough to be a billionaire. Doesn't that make sense once you hear it? Holy shit. If I want to be a billionaire, I need to get to failing. I need to be failing way fucking more. And sometimes bigger and more dramatically. You have to fail in your pursuit of it to get it. So when somebody tells me they're afraid of failure, I do not try to convince them that they're successful. That's challenging. How hard would it be to try to flip somebody's entire worldview into convincing them that they're successful? No. What we can do instead is show them how failure will get them what they want. Big goal, a lot of folks have. 10K a month, right? 5 figures a month. There's always a goal, across the board. Service provider, launching your own offer, whatever. I want to get to $10,000 a month. And you believe you have to be successful to get to $10,000 a month, right? I got to be successful to get to $10,000 a month. And once I'm at $10,000 a month, I will really be successful. That'll do it. But you've been struggling in that paradigm for years. So many people struggle in that paradigm for years. What if we could flip it? Can you fail your way to $10,000 a month? Because I know a lot of motherfuckers who do that. Extravagantly fail their way to $10,000 a month. So fear of failure is no longer a permissible excuse for you to not do something. You must fail to meet that goal. For those of you who don't know, when I look to the left, I have notes. I have notes, yes, lest I would totally derail and forget important things that I want to say. There's a part in my notes that comes a little bit later on, but it's hitting my spirit to say it right now regarding the fear of failure. We haven't failed enough to reach our loftiest and most ambitious goals. We have not failed enough. You have to get close to winning in order to win. You realize that? You have to get close to winning and fall short in order to win. I play poker, right? Love poker tournaments. Hard to win. Only one person wins out of hundreds or thousands that are playing. And as the tournament progresses, you are left with the cream of the crop, the people who have beat everybody else most of the time, a huge majority of the time. Of course, sometimes people just get lucky and they're unbeatable, right? Because there's an element of chance. But as the people you're playing against gets tighter and tighter and tighter, extrapolate this to what you do, right? The peak is small. There's only so much room for the cream to rise to the top. So it gets more competitive. It is harder to win, but you have to get close in order to do it. I have to face the 10 best other people in the tournament. And I will lose against them over and over and over again. But I have to if I ever want to win. Winning can happen no other way. Sports, championships, what do you have to do? You have to get through the semifinals. You have to get close to winning. And sometimes you will lose when you do that over and over again. Golf tournaments. Great documentary series on Netflix right now. Highly, whether you like golf or not. Called Full Swing. Because golf is a huge mindset game. Because it's just you. It's just you in there at the club. You can't rely on a team member, right, to pick up your slack. So it's a huge mindset game. You have to get close to winning to win. You have to get through the first 2 days of the tournament to get to the next two. Over and over and over again. So we can stop fearing failure. The more you fail, the closer you are to winning. You have to go through it. You have to get the experience there. It's possible that some are more afraid of success than failure. Success? That sounds really unknown. Do I have to work super hard? What commitments will I have once I'm successful? What eyes will be on me once I'm successful? So some folks who would first say they're afraid of failure, they might really be afraid of all that shit. And it's a huge unknown. And if their identity is not one of I'm a successful person, then fucking forget about it. No amount of success will fix that. No amount of money will fix that. Why do lottery winners in huge percentage, like 99% of them, have no money a year later? Because their identity is not that of a person who has a shit ton of money. And their actions will find a way. Your actions will always, they're smarter than you. They'll find a way to match your reality with your identity. Every time. So fear of success may in fact be more sinister than the fear of failure. And it's a huge unknown. Failure could feel way more known, right? So how are you so afraid of it? Success, I don't know about that. I'm not familiar with that. Another part of the fear of success is, well, would I be like braggy? Am I a braggy person if I'm successful? Am I bragging? Am I making other people feel bad? Am I not humble? Big time fears, right? Why don't so many of my clients, even though they have incredible skills, it's pulling teeth sometimes. I need you to get your private parts on the table and shout from the rooftops that you have these skills. It's not a tactical issue. It's not that they don't know the words to say or the place to say them. It is that they're afraid of saying them. They're afraid of bragging, not appearing humble. And so sometimes when they do say them, we get that undercut or that self-deprecation, right? So some will brag and then they'll tell some sort of self-deprecating joke right after it to cut the potency of the brag. Because God forbid anybody thinks they're bragging. Who's done that? I know a handful of you in here have done that. That's why my third book is going to be called Not Humble. Enough with humility. You are better than other people at certain things. You're supposed to be. That is the point. After all, Should we all be treated equally and fairly in society under the law? Absolutely. And at the exact same time, simultaneously, you are better than other people at certain things. Don't worry, they're better than you at certain things, but it's their job to say that about themselves. It's not your job to say that about them when you're supposed to be talking about yourself for a moment. And when you step up and are not afraid of bragging, you create the environment where others can do the same. Yeah, how about we fail at being humble? Thank you, Alyssa. Let's scroll back up to my notes and make sure that I'm on track. So here's the craziest thing with fear. And your behavior will match up to your identity. The environment that you are creating right now, due to any lingering, sneaky, insidious fear or uncertainty, right? Let's add uncertainty in there because it's important. Because we don't do certain things because we're not certain in how they're going to play out. Maybe it's neurologically and in your nervous system a little bit different from fear, but we could treat them the same way. The environment that you are cultivating for yourself right now, because of whatever you fear and whatever you're uncertain about, is the exact environment that will prevent you from leveling up. You're creating that. You're creating it for yourself right now. Here's an example. If I never guarantee to my clients blank, if I never guarantee a glorious, big, in-demand, desirable outcome, if I never guarantee that, or if I never simply say, hey, I could do that, I'm the one to facilitate X. If I never say that, there's no environment for me to create it. I get to play loose because I haven't stepped out and declared my audacious aspiration for my clients. And as long as I don't say that, they continue getting half-baked results. Half the power of the results that they could get in working with me. And you can extrapolate this to marketing services, okay? Marketing services. If you don't guarantee that your clients for your marketing services will experience some sort of relative lift, relative change, right? Your email open rates will go up 50% in 90 days, whatever it is. If you don't declare that you're the facilitator of that change, there's no environment to support you creating that change for them. Do you guys see that? But when you say, this is the thing I'm going to do, one, you're putting your own feet to the fire in the best possible way. Because now you've just put your private parts on the table and you've got to do everything in your power to get it done for them. And they will be so much more bought in, and they'll listen to what you say. They'll implement what you give them, because now you're both in the environment of that big, juicy result. Now everything is feeding the transformation. And we don't have to be all or nothing about it. Because the challenge with a goal and setting the goal like that, right, is, okay, I've defined what success is. Increasing open rates, 50%, in 30 days. I've defined what success is. But the trap that some will fall into that makes it scary is anything short of that is a failure. First of all, failure is great. So if you did fall short of that and you failed, fantastic. Check it off the box. It's one of your failures that you have to tick off as you keep increasing. You're going to learn from it. But also, if you get 80% of the way there, it's fantastic, right? You've still delivered a huge lift. You've learned, you have data. You can see where the hole was. You can optimize, figure out what you would do differently. So nobody is going to turn around and say, you promised me 50%, we got 45. I want a refund. And if they would, you would see the red flags, the writing on the wall with that kind of person. But if you don't claim it, if you don't declare it, they're not even getting 45%. They won't even get 45% in that case because you've just left it all willy-nilly. So you have to declare what you fear to create the environment that gets you the outcome. It's a huge part of it. And so I will share with you something I have been holding back. There are a couple things. I'm just going to do one for today. Okay. One thing at a time. I've been working on a book. Okay. I've mentioned it in passing here or there on these calls. I don't talk too much about it. You know? Why? Probably because I've been creating the environment where, well, whatever happens, you know, if I never launch the book, that's okay. If it only ever gets 2 people read it forever, that's okay. I didn't hype it up too much. I didn't talk too much about it. So you see, in doing that, I've created the environment that holds me back from getting that outcome. So I'm changing it up. We're going to do something different. And if you would like to, you can follow me on this journey as I do it. And even if I only get 80% of the way there, it's a big win. And it's better than not saying shit. So my book, it's called Vibe Tyrant when the image loads. Can you guys see that on my screen? Can I get a nod? Okay, thank you, Lynn. It's going to be dope. It's going to be like the best fucking book ever. But here it is. Vibe Tyrant will impact 1 million lives. There it is. I'm saying it. For months, I did not say this. I didn't say anything about it. But how can I create the environment? Well, it will happen unless I start saying it. And there's second and third order consequences of this, right? Because you guys will be enrolled in my mission. And when you guys read the book, you'll be like, oh man, I gotta help Laura help this book impact 1 million lives. I'm gonna tell my friends about the book. Those are some of the tactical outcomes in doing this. But really, the tactics are not the reason I'm doing it. I'm sharing them with you as a teachable moment. But I'm doing this so that my feet are to the fire and I create the environment where Vibe Tyrant impacts 1 million lives. Thank you, Alyssa. Can't wait to send it to all of her clients. So you could go to I made this because I was like, if I'm going to talk about it on the call, I got to send them somewhere. You could go to vibetyrant.com. It'll redirect you here. There is no autoresponder behind this. There's nothing. But you will know as I build and gear up for the launch. I will keep whoever signs up here because they're raising their hand and saying they're interested in it. All of the inner workings that are going to go on behind the scenes to have this launch be so big that a huge domino is knocked down on my path to it impacting 1 million lives. and me making a million other little vibe tyrants out there, which would truly be fantastic. That would light me up. And so that is one way I am being a fear facer and creating the environment that levels me up. And the more you do this, of course, the more habitualized you become to the act of doing it. And as a thought experiment, you could always try this on yourself, okay? Unless, great little word. If you notice in your internal dialogue, if you were being really honest with yourself about what's holding you back from doing something, and the line is anything similar to, I can't do that, let's just add an unless at the end. I can't do that unless, what could that stand to generate for you? It's impossible, unless it's impossible to have it all. Unless I did this, and then I would have it all, right? And so I could do that too. It's impossible, even though I don't often say that, but let's just say I did. For Vibe Tyrant to impact 1 million lives, unless, well, the first thing I'd have to do would be to finish the book. So that's a great clarity. Okay, let me get that step knocked out and out of the way. It's about 3/4 of the way done, I would say. Does anybody have any questions about fear? I don't know if it's because it's later in the day and I didn't lovingly yell as I often do in between, but we're a little bit early. And for next week, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. Feel free. I'm here. And not many of us are on camera. Next week, I want people to be on camera because I have a really special surprise, something fun we're going to do. Just so you know. Hey, Jeff, thanks. Thanks for popping on. I'll be excited to see everyone's 6-word update in the Facebook group. For those of you who don't know, that is a process one of my mentors, Dan Nicholson, taught me. And it helps us synthesize a takeaway, a nugget, a thought, a question, an open loop on the material we've gone through together. And it's incredibly powerful to see multiple 6-word updates in succession. And I always learn from what other people contribute. And the power to synthesize and distill swaths of information is a great skill, always a useful muscle to work. Melissa said, I use the 6-word update in my classroom for exit tickets. Yay! That is so awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. I'm going to tell Dan that too, because he really wants that idea to diffuse. And it's so fascinating, all the different iterations that it could take on. That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I will also share my notes on fear and the sneaky things we do as people who usually face fear. And so we won't say we're afraid, right? We'll say we're busy. Or we'll say we know everything that we're doing and our way is the best. Well, just drop the conditional if. It doesn't have to be true. Play a game with yourself sometime. Well, if I was uncertain about something, what would that be? And what might I do to find more certainty in that which I'm uncertain about? And you could facilitate becoming more of a fear facer for those in your life who you wish were. And for those, even for your prospects, right? You sell a service and you have prospects who say they're afraid to sign up for some reason. You might not want to convince them of the opposite, but instead show them how their fear will help them, how their fear has been prudent, what it's protecting them from, and how you're going to be with them no matter what. Because ultimately, if you're a coach or a therapist or somebody who offers a service like that, and even if not, even if you sell marketing training, the biggest objection your prospects, kind of just going on a side note here, but it's really important. The biggest objection, deep objection that your people will have is not necessarily that they don't know you, that they don't trust you, that they disbelieve it will work. That's not the biggest objection. That's what they say it is. But what, if you dig deeper, you'll often find it is they're afraid they're going to screw it up. I'm afraid I'm going to screw it up. I'm afraid that I'm not going to stick with it. I'm afraid it's just going to be another course I buy, another mentorship I get into, and I'm not going to make anything out of it. So how do you work with that fear? In a high integrity, authentic, honest way. And how can you demonstrate to them that it will be okay no matter what? Instead of the broad, crazy, sometimes unbelievable promise of, well, you won't fail. Well, you won't screw it up. What if instead it was, yeah, you're going to screw it up. Of course you are. You have to get close to winning to win, but I will be here. You're not going to be abandoned when you screw it up. How much more of an empowered selling or enrollment environment could that create if you began to handle fear that way? Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for your flexibility with the time. It is not going to happen again, at least not for another 6 months or so, until time zones change again. And then, who knows, we'll see. I appreciate you all immensely. I'm going to be pretty active in the group, writing some posts. I really encourage you guys to do the same. It's a community. It's not just the Laura Writes Stuff hour. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you next week.